Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever looked at the world and thought, what on earth is going on? The wars, the economic instability, the protests, the rising anxiety, the rapid pace of technology, the silence of trust and the loudness of fear. It feels like we're standing in the middle of a global breakdown. But I came to tell you something powerful. What looks like a breakdown is often a breakthrough in disguise. And what we call confusion may actually be construction, the tearing down of what no longer serves us to make room for something that does. History whispers a secret to us. Before every awakening, there was a shaking. Before every revolution, there was restlessness. Before every breakthrough, the world first broke down. Global confusion is not just a coincidence or a passing storm. It is a symptom, a visible sign that the very foundations of our world are being shaken. What we are witnessing is not the collapse of meaning, but the collapse of systems that have outlived their purpose. Look around. The anxiety, the disillusionment, the protests, the polarization, it's not happening in just one country. It's everywhere. From boardrooms to classrooms, from social media timelines to political stages, people are feeling a deep, unshakable truth. Something isn't working anymore. And that's because many of the systems we still depend on, economic, educational, political, even spiritual, were built for a world that no longer exists. Let me give you an example. Our education systems were designed during the Industrial Revolution. They were never meant to inspire creativity or unlock human potential. They were designed to create factory workers, obedient, efficient, and replaceable. But now we're living in the age of artificial intelligence, emotional intelligence, and digital transformation. We don't need obedience. We need innovation. We don't need conformity. We need courage. But the system hasn't caught up, and so students feel lost, teachers feel burned out, and the world wonders why we're producing degrees instead of solutions. And then there's politics. Most political systems in the world were built when the average citizen had no voice, no internet, no global awareness. They were built for control, not connection. Now people want to be heard. People demand transparency. People want leadership that listens and systems that serve. But the structures in place can't carry that new expectation. So what happens? Gridlock, frustration, extremes. People either check out or lash out. The same is true with our economies. We live in a time of unprecedented wealth, and yet billions still live in poverty. Technology has created trillion-dollar companies overnight, while traditional workers are being replaced, displaced, or underpaid. We were taught that if you work hard, you'll succeed. But millions are working harder than ever and still can't survive. The promise has been broken, not because people failed, but because the system did. Even spirituality has not been immune. Many institutions have confused tradition with truth, ritual with relationship, and control with care. As a result, many people feel spiritually starved while sitting in pews, temples, and mosques. They are searching for something deeper, but don't always know where to look. So here we are, in the middle of this shaking. The world is in flux, the old is collapsing, and the new hasn't fully arrived. And that's why it feels so confusing. But I want you to hear this clearly. Confusion is not the enemy. Confusion is a signal. It tells us the old map doesn't work anymore. It challenges us to stop following paths that lead nowhere and to start drawing new ones. It's uncomfortable. Yes, it's disorienting. Absolutely. But it is also a sacred invitation, an opportunity for rebirth, redesign, and realignment. Every great transformation in human history has passed through this dark tunnel of uncertainty. Whether it was the Renaissance after the plague, the civil rights movement after centuries of oppression, or revolutions of thought, art, and science that came after times of crisis, breakdown always precedes breakthrough. So instead of asking, why is everything falling apart, we should be asking, what is trying to emerge? What new systems, new values, and new ways of living are waiting to be born through this chaos? Because the truth is the world is not ending, but a version of it is, and we have a choice. We can either sit in fear and nostalgia, clinging to what was, or we can rise with courage and creativity and start building what can be confusion. Though uncomfortable, is one of the most sacred places a human or humanity can pass through. Why? Because confusion disrupts autopilot. It interrupts the cycle of doing what's always been done, believing what's always been believed, and following what's always been followed without question. It forces us to pause, to wonder, to reevaluate. And in a world moving at lightning speed, sometimes that pause is the most powerful act of all. Let's go deeper. Think about the process of transformation in nature. Before a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it doesn't just grow wings and fly away. It enters a cocoon, a place of total dissolution. Inside it melts, literally. Its old form is broken down into unrecognizable goo. Only then, from that chaos, does something extraordinary begin to form: wings, color, flight. But here's the secret. Without the confusion of the cocoon, there would be no butterfly. The same is true for us and for the world. Right now, the world is in its cocoon. Old identities, ideologies, and institutions are dissolving. The forms we used to trust are breaking down, and we don't yet know what will take their place. It feels like chaos. But chaos isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's construction in disguise. Just like the caterpillar, the world is being reformed. And that reformation requires us to let go of what's comfortable. It asks us to become uncomfortable, to live in the questions, to sit in the unknown, to remain open even when everything feels upside down. This is hard for most people. We like certainty. We crave control. But here's a truth we often forget. Clarity is not born in comfort. Clarity is forged in fire. And the fire we're in is not to burn us, it's to refine us. Look back on your own life. Have you ever had a moment where everything you knew fell apart? Maybe you lost a job, a relationship, a belief system, or even a sense of purpose. And at the time, it felt like your world was ending. But later, you realized that moment didn't break you. It broke you open. It didn't destroy your life. It dismantled the version of your life that could no longer hold who you were becoming. That's what confusion does. It is the in-between. Not where you were, not yet where you're going. It's uncomfortable. It's messy, but it's sacred. Because in that space, you start asking better questions. What really matters? What do I believe now? What do I want to build? What kind of world do I want to live in and help create? And this is exactly what the world needs right now. Not more opinions or quick fixes, but better questions. Not blind certainty, but vision anchored in truth and humility. A crisis forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that the old ways are no longer enough. When everything we've relied on begins to fracture, whether it's the economy, social structures, or political systems, the reflex is often to retreat, to cling to what was. But ironically, it's only in that retreat from the status quo that we begin to see the true possibility for forward motion. The old ways, as comforting as they may be, are often the very thing that prevents us from discovering new solutions. Think of it this way. When the ground beneath us shakes, it's a reminder that stability is often an illusion. True strength lies in our ability to adapt. The old, rigid structures can no longer meet the demands of a world that is constantly changing. And this is where the power of crisis comes in. Crisis strips away the excess, the distractions, the old assumptions that we've held dear. It forces us to look directly at the problem and ask, what else can we do? For instance, take the technology sector in times of disruption. When the pandemic hit, companies, both large and small, were forced to shift their operations overnight. Businesses that had traditionally operated in physical spaces had to pivot to remote work, forcing them to embrace digital tools, communication platforms, and online services in ways they never considered before. For some, it was a life or death situation. Without this rapid adaptation, they would have closed the doors. But in the very face of that challenge, entire industries were transformed. Remote work is now a norm, not an exception. Virtual collaboration has reshaped how we think about business operations, and companies are finding that they can do more, be more agile, and serve more people with less. What seemed like a catastrophe became a crucible for innovation. This transformation wasn't limited to the corporate world. Creativity and resourcefulness surged in every sector. Artists, educators, and even healthcare workers quickly reimagined their roles. Musicians held virtual concerts. Teachers pivoted to online classrooms. Doctors and nurses created telehealth models. Everyone was forced to innovate and adapt, not because they were necessarily prepared, but because necessity became their teacher. As the pandemic's grip began to loosen, the world found itself not back to normal, but in a new normal. Many of the innovations that emerged during that time weren't just makeshift solutions. They were breakthroughs. In times of global upheaval, we often see an acceleration of creative thinking that would have been impossible in less urgent times. There's a rush to make things work, and that urgency fosters the kind of ingenuity that often gets bogged down in times of complacency. In a crisis, you also see a profound rise in leadership, not always from the usual sources, but often from people who have no formal power, but possess the clarity, vision, and compassion to rally others around a common purpose. These are the leaders who emerge not from titles, but from actions. They take risks, propose new ideas, and forge connections in places where others see only walls. These leaders understand that it's not just about solving a problem, it's about creating a path where none existed before. Look at the example of social movements that gain momentum in moments of crisis. When systems of oppression reached a breaking point, people began to demand change in ways they never had before. The Black Lives Matter movement, for instance, surged to new heights following moments of intense crisis, like the tragic death of George Floyd. Protests, which may have seemed isolated or disjointed in the past, were now met with waves of collective action. This wasn't just about one moment of injustice. It was about a long-standing system that no longer had the moral ground to stand on. The response? An unstoppable force of people willing to challenge everything in order to create something better. What the world truly needs, however, are voices that cut through this cacophony, voices that bring clarity. Clarity isn't just about speaking in simple terms. It's about distilling the truth from the noise, helping others see a clear path amidst the confusion. In moments when it feels like everything is falling apart, people don't need more opinions or louder voices shouting over each other. They need someone who can articulate a vision, who can take complex issues and present them in a way that makes sense, that aligns with both the heart and the mind. These voices of clarity offer a different kind of leadership. They don't rely on sensationalism or the latest trend to capture attention. Instead, they provide a steady presence, a grounding force that helps people orient themselves in difficult times. Clarity is not just about being heard, it's about being understood, about cutting through the noise to reveal what's truly important. Alongside clarity, the world needs vision. Vision is the ability to see beyond the immediate problems and into the possibilities of the future. It's the foresight to recognize that the present moment, no matter how challenging, is a part of a larger picture. Visionaries aren't just reacting to the problems in front of them, they're thinking about what comes next. They inspire others by showing them a future that is possible, a future that is better, even when the present seems bleak. Vision empowers people to keep moving forward, to rise above the distractions and find purpose in the midst of difficulty. It helps to unite people with a common goal, a shared belief in what could be. The world desperately needs hope. Hope is the fuel that keeps us going when everything else feels uncertain. It's the belief that no matter how dark things get, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Hope isn't just wishful thinking. It's a deeply rooted belief in the possibility of change. It acknowledges the struggle, but it refuses to let that struggle define the end of the story. Hope sparks action. When people are filled with hope, they are more likely to work together, to innovate, to find solutions, and to create a future that is brighter than the present. Hope is the antidote to despair. It's the force that reminds us we are capable of transforming our circumstances even when it feels impossible. In a world awash in noise, these voices of clarity, vision, and hope become anchors. They don't just add to the chatter, they bring direction, inspire action, and foster resilience. They help people see the way forward, and perhaps more importantly, give them the strength to walk it. When these voices rise, they cut through the confusion and give us something solid to hold on to. They remind us that even in the midst of chaos, there is a purpose, a direction, and a future waiting to be shaped. Every individual has a unique role to play in a breakthrough, whether it's personal or collective. It begins with the understanding that no one person is solely responsible for the transformation, but rather it is a synergy of efforts that bring about lasting change. The world in all its complexity doesn't rely on a single leader, voice, or group to shift its course. Instead, it is built on the contributions of countless individuals, each bringing their own skills, experiences, and perspectives to the table. In times of upheaval or uncertainty, many may feel powerless, believing that their individual actions don't matter. Yet, it is precisely in these moments that individual contributions are most significant. A breakthrough doesn't emerge from the efforts of the few, but from the collective actions of many. The decision of a single person to act differently, think differently, or challenge the status quo can create a ripple effect that influences others, and over time changes the narrative. This role each person plays is often subtle but profound. It may manifest as a quiet act of courage or a small shift in perspective that sparks innovation or understanding. The change can come from anyone, from the scientist who discovers a new solution to an age-old problem, to the teacher who inspires a student to think critically, to the community leader who fosters collaboration and unity in times of division. Sometimes the impact is immediate, other times it grows incrementally, unfolding over time with results that may not be visible right away. In this breakthrough, there are no insignificant players. Every act of kindness, every bold idea, every decision to stand up for what's right contributes to the larger movement. People often underestimate the power they have to influence the world around them. A single person might inspire a team might inspire a community, and a community might spark a global change. The collective potential lies in how these individual actions weave together, creating a larger narrative that shifts the course of history. It is the strength of many individuals, each contributing in their own way, that creates a force that is unstoppable, propelling society toward a future that is more aligned with hope, clarity, and innovation. Even in moments when the world feels fragmented or divided, the breakthrough requires each person to play their part. Some may contribute through their work, while others may contribute through their relationships, their words, or their willingness to support those who are working for change. The key is recognizing that every contribution, no matter how small it seems, plays a vital role in the larger story of progress. The momentum needed to create transformation often starts with the smallest of shifts. When individuals take responsibility for their actions, their thoughts, and their interactions with others, they set the stage for a broader cultural and societal breakthrough. So the world stands at a crossroads, caught between the chaos of uncertainty and the potential for transformation. While the challenges we face are real and daunting, they also present us with unprecedented opportunities to innovate, collaborate, and reshape the future. In times of crisis, we discover the strength to adapt, the creativity to find new solutions, and the resilience to rise above adversity. This is not a moment for fear or inaction, but for bold steps forward. Every individual, regardless of their background or role, has a part to play in this breakthrough. From the quiet acts of kindness to the groundbreaking innovations, each action contributes to the collective transformation we need. As we face the noise, confusion, and uncertainty of today's world, we must hold on to clarity, vision, and hope, knowing that these qualities have the power to cut through the chaos and guide us toward a better tomorrow. The future is not something that happens to us, it's something we create together, and the breakthrough begins with each of us stepping up and playing our part.